Hey everybody, welcome back to the next part of my dialing in series for the Line 6 Helix. Today I'm going to talk about an effect that I've had a load of requests to dive into over the last little while, which is the Ubiquitous Vibe, which is a model of the very famous Uni-Vibe pedal, kind of made famous by folks such as Jimi, Hendrix, Trower, and so on. So we're going to dive right in and take a look at this kind of unique pedal. What do we have here? Well, we have these controls when we pull up the Ubiquitous Vibe: rate, intensity, mode, lamp bias, mix, and level. So we're going to break this down into what each of these do and kind of the effects that they have when we use them. Something interesting about the Uni-Vibe, and a lot of folks that have asked me questions, but I don't think really understand what it is. Essentially, it's a 4-stage phaser pedal. But what makes it a little bit unique is that the phasing is controlled by light-dependent resistors, which are controlled by an actual light bulb inside of the pedal. So we have a low-frequency oscillator, which is controlling a light bulb glowing from dim to on, and then the light-dependent resistors are affecting the phasing qualities based off of this light bulb activity. And that's why we have this lamp bias control, which might be confusing. And it is kind of a confusing thing to kind of get your head around. But once you understand how it's working, it's not so bad. So the rate of it is quite simple. I mean, that's going to be how fast and how slow this LFO is working, which is going to, basically control this light bulb going on and off faster or slower, okay? The intensity is going to be kind of the depth of that. And if you see a lot of the new sort of Uni-Vibe style pedals, a lot of times that control will be changed to depth. So we're going to get much sort of deeper phase cancellation when putting that up very high. The lamp bias, as I mentioned before, bias has to do with how much electrical current is being fed into something and sort of getting it the optimal amount. I'm guessing this setting that comes up, these are the settings that just come up when we pull the Uni-Vibe up on the Helix, and I'm guessing that the bias of 5 is kind of maybe the optimal setting, let's call it. I believe on some of the very original ones there was a trim pot inside which this could be controlled with, in my understanding of my research. Please correct me if I'm wrong on that. But I guess that this lamp bias allows us to control the bias going to the light bulb, which would then affect its behavior towards these light-dependent resistors, which are controlling the phasing. So we should be able to alter the phase qualities with this as well. So let's see what this sounds like. Okay, so if I turn this off, here's the sound of my tone that I've come up here just with my normal little template. I'm using the Brit Trim Norm with a 412 Greenback 25, mic'd with a 121 ribbon mic, 3.5 inches back. So with the Ubiquitous Vibe off, this is what this sounds like. Okay, so not such a bad little tone there. Now, if I turn this on with the stock settings, we get this. Pretty unique tone to it. Now, one thing is, on the original Uni-Vibes, the rate was controlled with a foot pedal. So one thing I like to do with this is to just right-click this and assign that. I'm going to assign it to Expression Pedal 2, which I have over here, which will allow us to alter the rate with our foot if we so desire. We have to remember that in the beginning, I believe, again from my research, that this was kind of designed to almost simulate a Leslie speaker cabinet, which would have had a foot control to speed up the rotating, spinning speaker inside of it. So this is kind of interesting. So we can either just set it and leave it, or we could constantly control it. But you hear basically how the rate just speeds up this sort of pulsating phase sound. So you see, just by adjusting the rate control, we can actually make it much more a dramatic effect or much less. Now, obviously, intensity is going to do that as well. Let's set our rate somewhere maybe in and around 2.93. Sort of a medium speed for that. Let's take our intensity control all the way down. Okay, so we sort of hear what the intensity does to... Makes the effect sound much more dramatic, but also it tends to thin the sound out when set lower. Now the mode switch on this, setting it from chorus or vibrato, can be a little bit of a confusing thing. And in my research to this, in the circuit, basically what's happening is on the chorus setting, this original direct signal that we get of our guitar that doesn't get changed but mixed in with the processed phased sound and blended at the end, what happens in vibrato mode is it gets rid of that direct signal and doesn't mix it in at the end anymore. So here's what happens if we have this type of thing. And I'm going to turn the intensity up so we can hear what's going on. You're going to get a much heavier warble to the sound. So it almost does mimic this sort of vibrato effect versus chorus. The vibrato has that almost out of tune warble to it. So I kind of tend to like this setting on chorus. Now the lamp bias, let's keep this set right around 5 on the intensity. If I take that lamp bias and turn it all the way down, you might think it's not doing anything to the sound, but if I shut that block off, it still is acting on the original tone. One thing to keep in mind, I have my auto impedance setting set so that the first block is dictating the impedance. I'm not sure exactly what the impedance should be set to for this, so that's why I'm just keeping mine at auto right now. So we can hear the tone difference with the lamp bias down, but we also notice that we're probably mimicking sending far less electrical signal to the lamp, therefore it's not moving as much. And I'm guessing that as we move that up, so you really hear a bit of a different behavior. That's going to be up to us to decide where we want that. So if we left that alone at 5, some of my kind of favorite settings on this is sort of with a rate down, fairly, you know, a little less than middle-ish, and a fairly low intensity. Set to chorus mode, intensity around 2.2 maybe. So I'm liking that, but the other thing we can do is if we want to go a little higher with the intensity here, we can control some of that by lowering the lamp bias a bit. So we notice the tone brightened up a bit there. We can really see we can use the lamp bias to really shape our tone in different ways. Seems to just darken it up at lower settings. So it seems at that higher lamp bias setting, at least at this rate and intensity level, if we have a really dark tone, we can brighten it up a little bit by moving that lamp bias up. So very, very important control. We'll leave that at 5 for now. Now, we could also get kind of really crazy with this. And again, at those settings, we could use the lamp bias to change things around. So you really have to play around with it. Go to different extremes because everybody's going to have their different ideals on this. But you know, something with the intensity very low and the lamp bias very high. A little bit of a thinner, much less in your face type of a sound out of it. Can be very nice for some subtle things. That can be very, very nice there. Maybe a little higher on the intensity with less on the lamp bias. Really beef the tone up. If that's too beefy, bring that lamp bias up a bit. And again, we can use our foot pedal after we assign it to adjust in real time the rate. So you can get quite creative with it. So I don't know, what do you guys think? I hope I was clear on that. It's a little bit of a confusing discussion to have when we're talking about this particular effect, but I think having a bit of an understanding of what we're dealing with and the fact we actually have a glowing light bulb and they're controlling things really does help us. And we see that that lamp bias control can be quite powerful. And it was really, I think, a stroke of genius by the folks at Line 6 to think of putting that lamp bias control in there to give us that ability to tweak this in really wonderful ways. So I hope that was helpful, guys. Please share the video with anybody who you think would get some use out of it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'm gonna have a lot more content come up. Hit the little bell notification to get notified when I put new content out. And like I said, I hope that was useful. I hope you can now feel a little more comfortable going and playing with this. And I find a lot of folks telling me, you know, a lot of times they set a pedal if they don't understand and they're afraid to turn the controls because they're gonna, you know, go somewhere they don't want to be. I say go for it. You know, go to extremes like I do. Go from one end to the next. Really try to listen for what qualities each control is adding or subtracting from the sound, and then you'll get a lot more confidence with it and feel much more comfortable kind of instinctively being able to set these up. So thanks again so much for your time, guys. Like I said, I hope that was helpful. I'll be back real soon. Ciao for now.